Star Fox is based on the Nintendo 64 game Star Fox 64, but the visuals have been completely updated. All of the characters in the game have also been redesigned. All right, let's take a look.
When I think of Nintendo, aside from mascots and platformers, I think of stubborn creativity. In the past, Nintendo has made a big deal about not wanting to make a sequel or a new game just for the sake of making one. Miyamoto has talked about this concept of gameplay idea first, character second. If they come up with an interesting idea for a game, they would then try to pick a franchise that would fit with it the best. Or in some cases, they create a new IP entirely, like with Pikmin, and I think even with Splatoon. They prioritize unique gameplay over anything most of the time. That doesn't mean every game is always different. Mario is Mario. Splatoon more or less has been the same game since the beginning. Animal Crossing has almost never been different at its core, and Luigi's Mansion is similar in that way. If you want to look at dramatic swings in ideas and a lack of consistency, you can look towards Kirby, and more recently in Yoshi. Pikmin also usually finds a way to either add mechanics or to do something a little different, for better or for worse. Zelda as a franchise kept its core the same for a really long time up until recently, but even back then, they were doing unique things, and the spin-off games were doing even more to experiment with the series. So with this design philosophy of wanting to make something new and fresh, what the hell has been going on with Star Fox? I think anyone that's been a long-term Nintendo fan knows that Star Fox is one of the franchises that has such a dedicated fan base that is so starved for anything and only gets to eat like every 8 years or something. The irony is that Star Fox is the antithesis of what Nintendo stands for. There are 10 games within this series, 9 if you don't want to count Star Fox 2, and 8 if you don't want to count whatever the fuck Star Fox Guard is. And only 3 of those games tell a different, unique story, and only 2 of them offer a distinct form of gameplay different from what you would expect from a regular Star Fox game. The original Star Fox game from 1993 has now been remade 4 fucking times with the release of this new game for the Switch 2. Zero was a reimagining, I guess, but fans being fed the exact same story regardless of how you look at it. Imagine being a fan from the 64 era, or even worse, from when the game first came out. You would have gotten almost no original content from this series in basically 30 years, and the original content that was made is difficult to play by regular means nowadays since Nintendo isn't the best at preserving games. That's a whole thing with the gaming industry as a whole, and I don't have the mental fortitude to dive into all that right now. I think Adventures and Assault have gone through waves of how people perceive those games, but it's a fact that those 2 games give you the biggest shakeup and try to be more than what it started as. What the hell is the Switch 2 Star Fox doing for the franchise? Making the boys look like this? I've seen some people try to defend these designs, and if you like them, good on you. But to me, these designs are so bad, which is unfortunate because they could have been pretty good actually. They don't look bad from the waist up. Dare I say, they actually look pretty good. But once we get to the legs, like, what the fuck are we doing? There's straight up a disconnect between the upper body and the legs, with the upper body being more or less completely humanoid, while the legs and feet are animal-like. The size and shape of them don't make sense together, where it looks like the weight shouldn't be supported, and the hands are human-like while the feet aren't. Slippy is the only character of the main crew that more or less looks okay, but when you get to his head, he looks kinda gross. And the head is a problem for Fox and Falco as well. Fox's head is less defined because he has so much extra fluff. Falco's head shape is completely different, has a smaller beak, and everyone's eyes are much smaller. At the time of making this, Wolf's official render hasn't been revealed, so we don't know how he truly looks. But from the little bit we did get to see, it's easily worse than his design in Zero and in Smash Ultimate. And speaking of the renders actually, they make these characters look not good, but at least a little better. The renders are brighter and give more color to the characters so they don't look so dull, and the proportions kinda sorta aren't distracting, as opposed to looking at Falco in this scene and wanting to cry. Whether it's because of the environments they're in or because of the shaders on them, the in-game models are always very dark, which makes them look a lot worse. And the way that Fox specifically looks when speaking makes him seem so lifeless and incapable of truly emoting, which is ironic because of the whole face tracking tech they put in the game. And honestly, I'm entirely convinced that they made this game just to test this new tech, which won't be used by anyone for more than like 5 minutes for content creators and people on social media to have a laugh and never use again, but maybe that's good enough for them. At least the environments look good. This whole thing reminds me of the Capcom test. A franchise that hadn't gotten anything new in a long time would get a much smaller release or a remaster to test engagement and interest in the series to see if it would make sense to commit to a brand new title. If you're into fighting games, you'd know that they tried to do this with the Darkstalker series, and it didn't go well. It probably isn't that, but I can't imagine why Nintendo would remake a single game 4 fucking times and do so little to change it up, especially because of how many other series and characters have been left dormant for so long. Diehards would bring up Chibi Robo, but that's developed by Skip and published by Nintendo, so I don't know if that really counts. But if it does, just run with it. People have been waiting for a new Wario Land game since he's been reduced to a WarioWare machine. Others have been dying for more Golden Sun, Kid Icarus, and Punch-Out! All series beloved by so many, and only have 3 games to their name. Technically, Punch-Out has more than 3, but only technically, not in any way that actually matters. Rhythm Heaven fans are going to be eating again after a decade without a new game, or even longer than a decade when you look at the last console release. There are 2 main series that I think of, though, when it comes to aggressively desperate fans. Mother and F-Zero. F-Zero did get a game in 2023 in F-Zero 99, but the last game before that was all the way back in 2004. 2004, for fuck's sake. The last major release for that game was in 2003 with GX, and funny enough, was made by Sega of all people. And people love it. It's considered the best game in the franchise, and since it's been ignored for so long, other people have made spiritual successors to that game specifically. Mother is a much more depressing story for fans though. In America, we got Earthbound back in 1995, and has been periodically released virtually in one way or another, and on the SNES Classic. And that's it! There are 2 other games, a sequel and a prequel, that has never had an official release, and even the sequel came out all the way back in 2006. Fans have worked their asses off making a fan translation for Mother 3, and I'm pretty sure there's more than one translation out there, so it's up to the person trying to play it to seek out which one is worth playing. The more effort the average person has to go through, the less likely they are to go through with it when it comes to emulating. Nintendo could release a translation for Mother 3, overcharge people for like 30 or even 40 bucks, and people would eat that shit up. You guys saw what happened to the Pokemon re-release. There's probably people who don't even know a third Mother game is even out there. This series has influenced some of the most acclaimed indie games of modern day, and Nintendo has refused to do anything with it. F-Zero and Mother have been ignored to such a fucked up degree, while this fuck-ass Fox has gotten 4 unremarkable remakes of the same game, despite the claim of being a gameplay-first company. Nintendo knows there's an outcry for certain properties to make a comeback to, because back in 2022, they acknowledged it and claimed that they can't realistically make sequels to every series fans request. And listen, every series? Of course not. But what about all of these? The last Punch-Out game was made by Next Level Games, the same people that made the old Mario Soccer games, the good ones. And the last Kid Icarus was made by Sakurai and Project Sora. And like I said earlier, Sega made the best F-Zero game. My point is, I don't know why Nintendo doesn't give out their properties more often to other developers. Crypt of the Necrodancer devs made Cadence of Hyrule, and people were super into it. Hyrule Warriors has been made by Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja this whole time, and Fire Emblem 3 Warriors was made by Intelligent Systems and Omega Force. The modern Donkey Kong platformers that are constantly praised and Metroid Prime series were made by Retro Studios. The Mario & Luigi series was made by Alpha Dream. Funny how Nintendo made Brothership after choosing not to save Alpha Dream from closing, and it wasn't the most well-received game in the series, to say the least. Smash Ultimate was Sora and Bandai, and Ubisoft got full reign with Mario Rabbids. Basically every game that I've named, players absolutely loved, and even if it wasn't loved, I don't think any of these games are outright bad, maybe with one exception. And I'm sure for most, if not all the games I just mentioned, Nintendo heavily supervised during the development and have rules of what the characters can and can't do, and maybe even how characters could be depicted in similar fashions that Marvel has done with Spider-Man. And that seems fine to me. There have been so many pitches by the studios they work with often. Retro has tried to do so much more than Metroid and assistance work, but Nintendo doesn't let them do anything. Nintendo has turned down so many creative pitches, and to claim that they can't make a sequel for every series, and I'll say it again, while Star Fox gets to exist in the state that it does, is absurd and a fucking lie. We are well past the days of Zelda CDI and Hotel Mario. They don't have to sling their characters willy-nilly to any dev team that asks for them, but communicate and collaborate with them to make something great. If you work with the right devs, everyone wins, both the companies and the consumers. And it's ironic, actually. Star Fox, at least in a small way, made its way into Starlink, a game nobody ever really talked about, and a game people probably don't even remember. Adventure was made by fucking Rare of all studios, and Assault was made by fucking Namco. You take that type of gameplay and make it now in the modern gaming space, you can create an awesome experience. If Nintendo doesn't want to make that game, they should let someone else do it for them, because I'm positive other people would love to do it. What I will say at this point is that there are always other options. There are other on-rail shooters like Star Fox made by smaller teams that could give you better, or at the very least, different and more unique experiences than Star Fox. F-Zero has inspired its own indie games, and Mother has done the exact same. If you want these types of games and have the means to play them, put a little time into looking at the indie space and supporting the smaller teams, or sometimes the one individual that put so much time and effort into the project that they believe in. If you don't have the means to play these games, just think twice about buying a remake of a game that you've already bought at least 2 times before. Also, Nintendo is making fucking movies now. They're working with Illumination, for fuck's sake. You guys can't let go a little so someone can make a new Kid Icarus game? What the